So today we're sitting down with Emmy Award-winning Director and Producer Rudy Poe, who is also the founder and creator of Rudy Poe OU. Is that how I say it, Rudy?
It is.
Awesome. Author of Embracing Change and co-founder of 11th Day Entertainment. Please welcome Rudy Poe to the Untied podcast.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We're glad you could join us today. So basically I wanted to start like from the beginning. So I was going through your LinkedIn and your website and reading all about your story and everything. But what I was really interested in was where it all began, like your journey, like, because I could look at your career, but your journey to where you are now, where do you think that the beginning part of that was?
You want me to go all the way back to diapers or what? How far back do you want me to go?
Well, as far back as you think is necessary to pretty much bring it full circle and with the book and everything like that.
Well, so I originally went to art school and then I went to UCLA to film school. So I was even, going through college and stuff, it was kind of a journey of discovery. And so I packed all my bags and off to Hollywood I went, and then I kind of actually accidentally fell into documentary filmmaking. I needed a job and my roommate happened to be directing a big documentary. And so I was the researcher, and actually from that, I fell in love with research. I still love it. It's like I sit and learn and poke around and go down rabbit holes all day long, so that kind of started that. And, along the way, I started to work my way up like everybody else does from the bottom and ended up, learning how to produce and ultimately direct and, made over a couple hundred hours of documentaries for all different kinds of clients. I mean, everything from corporations to foundations to PBS to Playboy, you name it, And, that was my entertainment career and it lasted quite a long time. It's still going, I guess, in its own way, but I kind of transitioned out of it about 12 years ago and started my entrepreneurial journey.
That's awesome. I was going through your all your filmography on your website that you have listed, and a couple of the ones that like stuck out at me were Mr. K and MGM When the Lion Roars, which was your first one, right?
Yeah, that was my first documentary job. They basically took me in. It was a great job. They locked me in the vault, which was like a block square building by 20 feet tall of all the MGM films. And I dug through all the cans of film. I did it for months and months and months. And that began that. And then the Mr. K film that was one of my favorite projects. That was the one I won my Emmy for. And it was the story of a self-made billionaire who founded the Kansas City Royals and started a company out of his basement and sold it for $7 billion, decades later.
Wow.
And now has a foundation, the Kauffman Foundation. You might have heard of it. They promote entrepreneurship in America. Yeah.
Well, and of course you fell in love with research after they locked you in the vault at MGM and you just went through all that footage. I mean, who wouldn't love that research, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. I had this little film turntable thing, and I literally was climbing on ladders and digging through cans that nobody had opened in decades.
Wow, that's crazy. Just to think that someone was like, all right, this is done, and put it on a shelf and never opened it again.
Right, Rudy. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a couple of selfish questions, and it's because I'm actually majoring in media and cinema studies right now at DePaul University. I have intentions to produce and direct, yet I don't really, know how to get my foot in the door. And so I guess my first question is, does a major in media and film studies matter in the world of directing and producing?
I don't know. I mean, back when I was going to film school, it was kind of the only way to learn, right? Because we didn't have the tools. I mean, we were shooting on film, and, it cost a lot of money, and just, I mean, I don't know how many thousands of dollars I spent on my thesis project, but now everybody has access to all this stuff. I mean, just because everybody has access to it doesn't mean it's good. You know what I mean? So I think that the school is a great, for me, the 3 years I spent at UCLA was great because it helped me learn my way around town. It helped me expose me to all that stuff because I had never been around any of it before, and then there's the whole business side, which, quite frankly, I was never very good at. I was more of a creative person. So, but I think there's a lot more opportunities these days to get started. I mean, anybody can put stuff up there on whatever social media channel there is, and who knows who's going to take note, right? I mean, we only had our end of the year film screening. So I think everybody who wants to get into it these days is pretty lucky. It's a pretty amazing time to be able to do that kind of thing.
Well, and one thing I'm looking forward to is getting back in the classroom just in general. And then also getting back in the classroom and being in the classroom with like-minded individuals that also have, a niche to create and produce. And I think that will obviously contribute to whatever the hell it is I end up doing. But I am interested in, out of all of your projects, I was just curious if you could walk us through like the day in the life of what producing something is actually like from sunup to sundown.
So we always did a lot of work for hire jobs. I mean, we were making things, we did different kinds of things, but somebody would come to us and say, we need to make a film about this or about that. I mean, we did stuff for the Naval War College. It's like, we knew nothing about that. And, or we did the history of MGM, when we got started, we knew nothing about that. So it's always been a learning process. So, I mean, there is a process, and I'm talking about documentary filmmaking, right? And documentary filmmaking is a little different than, I don't know if you're interested in more like feature type stuff or sitcoms or whatever. I mean, each one is kind of its own mountain to climb. You know what I mean? They're all different flavors of things. So, I mean, it's great that and I think you're absolutely right in that when you surround yourself with a group of people, especially students. I mean, I love being around colleges and stuff. The energy is so great and everybody's just wants to do everything. I mean, I remember when I did my thesis film, I had people sleeping. I had a studio apartment, and I mean, we were working literally 18 to 20 hours a day, and people were sleeping on my floor. I mean, we did and those are great times, and I'm sure you'll have your own stories of that as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
So I don't think I really answered your question though, but I mean, I don't know. Every day is different, right? I mean, that's one of the beauties of this job. It's not like you go to work and it's the same thing every day. I can't think of any 2 days that were ever the same. So it's just, keep an open mind and just, you go through it and you take it as it comes, and you try and think it through and you stay ahead of it. But, there's always stuff and there's always creation going. It's, you're creating something out of nothing. Even though you have a script or a map of some kind, you're always on a journey of discovery.
And so, this will kind of be my last question. Then Jackson has one. But I mean, I feel like that's kind of the road us three are currently going down, is we don't really have a set end goal. We just know we're moving forward in the right path because we're putting stuff out there and hoping, shit will stick somewhere. So I'm curious what your advice would be to us, some like new creators in the world. Where obviously we're pretty new to this. So as someone that has created from a young age and then also successfully in building a career, like what would you tell us?
Well, I mean, there's two parts to it, right? And for for many, many years, I was always on the creator side, so we would finish our project and we would drop it off and we were done with it. And then somebody would take it and made sure it got seen or, it got distributed or whatever, right? So our job was make it. And they're literally making and distributing or marketing. Those are two completely different worlds, right? Yes. And so now those lines are blurring, and I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. I've been at this, forever, but so, with my book, and my book is also a course. So that's what I did during COVID. I stayed in my room and I made an online course. I got over my fear of being on camera, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this, And so now I'm trying to do the distribution part, right? I mean, because like one good thing about doing the distribution stuff yourself is you don't have to ask permission, right? You can just go do it. You can do exactly what you guys are doing. Just go do it. And like I'm throwing stuff against the wall, right? Like a friend of mine markets movies, right? And she says, you have to do TikTok. And I'm like, and every time I see somebody on TikTok, I'm like, I don't mean to slam TikTok, but it's just like, I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like me, not my thing, So I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll embrace change. I will do it. So now I'm doing these little things on TikTok and trying to see what works and what doesn't. I mean, I literally just got started a couple of weeks ago, but that's the fun, is just throwing it against the wall and seeing what sticks. Most of it's not going to stick, by the way.
I believe that. And also, you're going to get me in trouble because Tyler and Jackson are big TikTokers and I am not at all. So I need to embrace that change too and get my ass in there.
That content.
Okay, well, you guys have to check out what I've done on TikTok. I have like 6 posts so far, so you guys can critique me. Okay,
absolutely.
Right, I'll go check it out after this episode. One of the most interesting things that I saw while reading through your biography page and your welcome to the website page was the New Testament project that you guys put together, this awesome trailer that I was watching, and then I read underneath it, and it was like it never actually came to be. Yeah, and I was like, what? Like, this is such a cool trailer that I was like I'm not even like that religious. I was brought up in a Catholic Christian home, so I have that upbringing. But other than that, I mean, I'm not like a regular churchgoer. But
yeah, I'm not a churchgoer at all.
Yeah, I call myself a creaster. Christmas and Easter, I go.
Creaster?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that project was like, so we would make films for other people, and then we would use the profits to fund our own pitches and stuff, right? So, I mean, we had a production company, we had all these edit bays and everything, so it's like, we're going to put this to use. So for that particular project, we were pitching projects all the time. I think we got up to we would number them, right? I think we got up to like 300 and something.
Oh, wow.
And maybe like, 10 of them actually got made. So there's that. We were masters at making presentations of things that never got made. So maybe our salesmanship skills were just not as good as our filmmaking skills. I don't know. But that was a great project because, so what we did is, it was when we first started the company, we had no clients, we had nothing else to do, right? So we said, we're gonna make this big epic project and we're gonna pitch it. And so we made this beautiful presentation. We spent 9 months researching it. And the whole idea was, this is the world's best-selling book, right? Always has been, always will be. And we thought, well, that's an evergreen project. People will watch this forever. You make it once and, we'll get checks in the mail for the rest of our lives. And, and we actually went out and interviewed people. We even sent my partner to the Vatican. We interviewed somebody in the Vatican.
Wow.
And so we shot all these interviews. We got some pretty high-powered people, and scholars at Oxford and all these places. So we had this sort of, and we made the trailer. This is what I did in film school too. Like, a lot of people in film school would make like these 20-minute films, right? And they were like these little mini films. And I didn't have enough money to make a mini film. So what I did is I made a trailer and faked like I already made the movie, right? And I actually got to direct the movie. It was a horrible movie. My career was over before it started, but so that's what we did with the New Testament project. And so we made the trailer in hopes to go get the money. And, it just never came to be. We made a beautiful trailer though, didn't we?
Yeah, it was really awesome. I was like, I want to watch this. And I was like looking up where to find it. And I went back to your website and saw that it never completed. I'm like, great, cool.
Yeah. It was actually supposed to be, what the idea was, this book wasn't, most people who read the book and live by it, they don't know where it came from and how it came to be. So this was it's a 300-year journey, how this book came to be. So, it's the context in which it was written and how it was written and all that kind of stuff. So, we wove the stories of the Bible in with the actual, socioeconomic and all the political stuff that was going on at the time. And, it's kind of this great adventure story.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the other thing, I know we touched on Mr. K already, but what was it like to interview George W. Bush in the White House? Like, especially since you said that you had gone into the Vatican and interviewed really high up people there. And like, what was the difference between going in the Vatican and then going to the White House?
Well, I actually didn't go to the Vatican. My partner did. I was always I was kind of, at the production company, I was kind of Oz. I was like the guy behind the curtain who was keeping the train on the tracks, Yeah. And everybody was out there having most of the fun. I did have quite a bit of fun, but, a lot of times I was the one, keeping the train on the tracks. But when we did go to the White House, and that was an interesting experience, it was kind of funny because the reason we got to go, and we found out like the president will sit down and he will, and I'm going to assume every president does this. They would sit down and he would sit in one place and he would like do these different projects. He would intro this and intro that and intro the other thing. And he would knock out 10 of them all in like, 20 minutes. Right. But this was at the beginning. There wasn't even HD then. It was right at the beginning of high definition. And we had high definition cameras and the White House didn't yet have high definition cameras. So they said, all right, you guys can bring your high definition camera and we'll let you guys sit down special with them. So we went in there and we sat down and we spent like a whole day lighting this one shot. Right. And this was when Katrina, it was the week that Katrina happened. I don't know. And so the president had to leave. He had to go, to New Orleans and do his job and all that, So we ended up sitting around the White House for a day, kind of twiddling our thumbs, waiting for him to come back. And so it was kind of cool. We wandered around and, saw stuff. And we're looking on the walls like, oh, look at that. That's an interesting sword. Whose sword is that? Oh, that's George Washington's sword.
Wow.
And guys saying, don't sit in that chair. That's like, 200 years old. And it's like, okay, won't sit in the chair, So anyway, so we came in and it was funny, I was kind of nervous because I thought, I'm going to meet the president, and you hear him come walking down the hallway and he had his cowboy boots on and he comes in and you're, I figure I'm going to say, well, good afternoon, Mr. President. The line that came out of my mouth was, how you doing? Oh my God. What did I say? It's like, I'm such a knucklehead. But,
oh, go ahead.
No. So we sat down. He did it. It was kind of funny. I had this little story about I had a little bout with this. He has a permanent teleprompter guy, right? Who knows just the way it is. And, he says, well, he puts the teleprompter right in the wrong place. I'm like, oh, my camera's way back here, dude. And he says, well, the teleprompter's up here. I said, well, I'm not moving the camera. And he said, well, I'm not moving the teleprompter. And you got to shoot, so we had a little thing and we came up with a solution where everybody was happy, but it was all good.
Goodness, that's insane. I couldn't imagine. Did you? I mean, I'm guessing you did, but what was the overall atmosphere and the pressure like of actually being at the White House already and set up for an interview?
It was pretty low key, I mean, it was really hard to get in there. We had to pack our stuff in a thing a block away and all the bomb sniffing dogs and everything. I mean, it was really hard to get on the property, but once you're in, it was like, just kind of wander around. It's kind of funny. So this is a good story. So they used to have the press room. They have a new press room now, but there was a press room and we were wandering around, nothing to do. So we're looking, we're in the press room and there's nobody there. It's empty. So my partner and I, we have to do this. So we went up and we took pictures of each other standing at the podium where the president speaks, Nice. Kind of funny. So I have a great picture of me at the podium.
I mean, you have to take advantage of that circumstance.
Absolutely. You could not do it, right?
Right. So speaking of that project and the multiple projects that you've done with like producing, directing, etc., was there ever a project that you fully decided like, all right, I'm going to go all in on this, even though you really truly had no idea of what the outcome was going to be, and then it ended up actually surprising you in the end?
Yeah, well, it's turned into my book.
Okay.
So right after I did the Mr. Kaufman film, it led me to an opportunity to go shoot. It was kind of I wanted to make what I call smart media. So I created a project. It was all about, I have this fascination with imagination and creativity. So we created a project called the Imaginative Project, and I funded it myself, and I wrote it and edited it and everything pretty much. And we went to Stanford and shot some stuff. So we shot some interviews there, and it was kind of cool. They premiered it in their big theater there on campus, and got some interest. So we shot another one. So I made 2 feature documentaries all on my own. And that was the most fun I've ever had making a film. You know, it was like I didn't have a boss for the first time in my life. So that's one great thing you guys have going for you, right? You have the opportunity to do your own thing.
Yeah, that's what we tell each other all the time. We're like, hey, should we do this? Or should we do this? And it's like, who cares? We can if we want. Like we'll figure it out eventually. What works and what doesn't.
Yeah. So I made these 2 projects, and then I ran out of money. So I had to put it aside, and I started this whole other company, and that took me a decade. And now I'm back at this, and I kind of figured out what was missing from the first Imaginative Project, and now it's become Embracing Change, which is my book, and all this media. I just love this subject of change, and I have this issue that people don't really like to change. So
right.
I figure I have to do something about this.
Well, I mean, let's get into it. Yeah. So your book, Embracing Change, I was going through a couple of your things, reading a couple things, and I saw that you brought up Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And I'm guessing you've read it, and I'm actually currently reading that right now. I'm a huge self-improvement person, and I think everybody should be, because really, why not? And in the book, Viktor Frankl has a quote. He says, "He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how." And so for someone that has a passion for implementing change, and obviously having read the book yourself, what does that quote mean to you?
Say the quote again, because I want to hit this one on the spot.
It's he who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how.
Yeah, I mean, you have to find your why, right? Because that's your passion, right? And that's the thing that's going to keep you going through thick and through thin, and that's kind of what he's talking about, right? I mean, he had the ultimate of thick, right, and thin. I mean, he doesn't get more than what he endured. But passion is this incredible thing. You have to have it, and because you're gonna quit before you hit success if you don't have that passion, right? I mean, you gotta keep at it, and it's that's what keeps you going, and that's what kept him going. Is his whole thing was, I'm gonna write this book, and that's the book that you and I have read.
It's a great book, Jackson.
Yeah.
So in speaking with your book, Embracing Change, did you always know that you wanted to help people to adapt to change, or did you know that you always wanted to help people, but you didn't know how? Where did that come from? What sparked that, the idea for the book? So
when I made the Imaginative Project that I just talked about, I interviewed a gentleman named Randy Komisar, and he said something that's like, it's tough to get started, right? He says, but if you can find something to rub up against, that's one source of inspiration. And it's been just sort of a pet peeve of mine that people don't like to change. It happens so often, and it's like kind of got under my skin. It's like, well, that's just not how the best way forward is, I don't think, because I've been a creature of change forever. I mean, even when I was a kid, I went to 5 different schools before I was in the 3rd grade. I guess that's where I kind of got it, right? But so that's what kind of motivated it. And I realized that, a lot of people, there's sort of big picture change and individual change, right? And most people aren't really interested in the big picture change. They kind of think, oh, somebody else will take care of that. But we live in this amazing, amazing time. Right. And I've read so many books that on both sides of the equation, right, from the population bomb and all these doom and gloom stories that were written all the way back in the 1960s to these other books of an abundant future. Right. And so there's 2 different schools of thought. And I think you can apply that to your life. You know, a lot of people, it's like, oh, I'm sort of stuck where I am. But if you change your mindset to having this open-minded way of looking at things and embrace what's coming, because change is going to happen to you or because of you. So I'm all about being proactive. So I thought maybe I'd give people a tool. If I can write a tool, maybe I'll get some traction. You know, so it's not really, the book is just a tool. It's an online course too, but just different people learn different ways. So I've got both of those. But, you know, really it's kind of like, I just want to see if I can, it's a little bit of a human experiment for me. You know, it's like, can I actually get people to embrace change? You know, does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I feel like there are things that I don't change about on a daily basis that I can look at myself in the mirror and say that I need to change, and I'll be like, that can start next week. You know, I'm like, it's that thing in your head that tells you, no, I can wait till next week. That's the thing that always gets me.
I have a chapter called Procrastination.
Yeah, if you look up procrastination in the dictionary, it's also like C. Jackson Delisle. So yeah. That's what I'm good at.
Yeah.
So you started at a young age adapting to change, and that kind of led to the book. At least in the very beginning, that was almost like the pebble in the pond that had that ripple effect of you having to go to 5 different schools before you were in 3rd grade. But what was like when you help people to make a positive change in their life, what is usually the first step that you see on an overall like general scale that you're like, oh, this is a very similar like problem that you see in different people's mindset? Anti-change mindset? Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first thing I think is it's a question of awareness, right? I mean, I think a lot of people are not as aware as they could be or should be. You know what I mean? I mean, people go through their lives and they kind of have blinders on, right? So if you just kind of open your eyes and your ears and your mind and start to become aware of, because like the world is full of possibilities and opportunities, but people don't even see them, right? Because they're not aware enough. You know, I mean, so it's a mindset thing, you know, and I think that when you, to start embracing change or being an adaptable person, it's like anything else. It requires kind of practice and conditioning, right? So like what I was just saying about, you know, being a kid or going to school or having different jobs and all these different things, I'm pretty well conditioned to be able to willing to go into, just walk right into it and go, okay, let's do this. Whereas most people are not, you know. So awareness, I would say, would be one of the very first things you should try to tune into.
Rudy, do you have a morning routine?
I do, kind of, sort of. Yeah.
Do you mind elaborating on it, and even if like what you believe is there an importance in routine in your daily life?
Yeah, I mean, I've come to have a morning routine. Like, so you know, when you learn about yourself, it's like what works. Different things work for different people. So my routine is my routine, and yours is yours, and what's mine is may not have anything to do with yours. But so I like to spend the first couple hours, I call it me time. You know, when I sleep, I get all these like, I like to go on a walk in the morning. I like to go for a couple hour walk, and I do a little bit of exercise and stuff most mornings. But on my morning walk is when I get all my ideas. I guess it's because I got a good night's sleep, and you know, so everything I was processing and input from the day before, it somehow made sense in my head, I guess, while I was sleeping. And then I have all these aha moments in the morning. So I like to have that time, and I have my phone and I jot down all these notes because I would never remember them all. So,
right.
You know, I have all that. And then I basically, it's kind of funny because I spend the rest of the day doing what I thought of in the morning. You know, that first hour or two of the morning, between going for a walk and having a cup of coffee and taking my morning shower and checking my mail and, you know, kind of get caught up on the day so I don't have a bunch of straggly things left over. And then end up doing the busy stuff of what I dreamt up in the morning.
When you, because I'm guessing there was a point where it hit you, where you realized that you needed to implement change, that kind of mean implementing something new into your routine?
Yeah, like the morning walk's been a thing for me for a long time, but I've kind of just come through an entire decade of change. I went, one company ended, another company began. I got divorced. I'm in a new marriage. I just moved all the way across the country for the first time in my life. I grew up, born and bred in California, and now I live in Florida. So it's been a whole decade of this, but that morning routine of mine has actually been kind of a constant thing for me.
Sounds good to me.
I was going to ask if you were born and raised in California, because I saw you went to UCLA and a lot of your things on your timeline in your career happened in California. But Florida, I did see that you're currently out in Florida, and that's kind of the opposite of California, isn't it? It's like the exact opposite. Like the people are completely different. It's just a different animal.
Oh yeah, it's different. But what's funny, and it's funny, all my friends in California gave me a bunch of crap about moving here, right? I mean, yeah. So I started life in the Bay Area. I actually live in Berkeley in the San Francisco Bay Area. I went to college there. And then, so I packed all my bags. So I was Northern California for the first 20 or so years of my life. Then I moved to LA. And I moved to LA because that's where the film business was, right? And then I was there until LA and then kind of Orange County, but Southern California until just 4 months ago. So my whole life was there. But so this is funny. So we decided it's like, okay, time for a new chapter. We're just going to do this. We're going to move. And, there was some, your dollar goes a lot farther in Florida, which was one of the reasons why we moved here. So, but what I did is I sat down one night at a bottle of wine and Google, right? And I just started Googling. I Googled gourmet food, boating, bohemian, art, everything I liked, right? And everything pointed to St. Petersburg, which is just about 45 minutes from here. I ended up in Sarasota, but Sarasota turned out to be pretty cool too. So, but it's not like this. It's not like what everybody thinks. I mean, most of California is wonderful. I love California, but honestly, most of California, I don't know that I really want to live there. And the same goes for Florida, right?
Yeah.
There's certain little pockets of, that fit my personality. And it's interesting. It's not that different where I am. I mean, there are certainly differences, but I think I did my homework really well. I got through that bottle of wine that night and I was driving around on Google on all the streets, man. It's like, you can drive on Google. It doesn't matter if you're drinking, because you're sitting in my chair, right? So,
that's a great idea.
That's awesome. Because again, I wanted to ask you that because we're in Chicago and Tyler's from he's from Illinois originally, but
I lived near the Bay Area for a while.
Whereabouts?
It was Vacaville area.
Okay.
Probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know where that is.
Yeah, I was stationed at Travis at the Air Force Base.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's by the wine country. I know that.
Yeah, it sure was. Sonoma County. Better than Napa for anyone going.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make this segue crazy. So one of my favorite people to follow on the internet is he's kind of a motivation guy. His name's Jocko Willink. Do you know who he is?
No.
Okay, so Jocko Willink is like a retired Navy SEAL. He led the Battle of Ramadi in Iraq, I believe, if I got that right. I'm pretty sure I did. But anyways, he's kind of like a tough-nosed, hard-headed guy, but he has a super large following, and he's just a great motivator. And his mantra is discipline equals freedom. A, I'm curious, do you agree with that? And then B, do you have your own mantra that you kind of follow by, or does it have to do with like changing?
Discipline. What was it again? Discipline what?
Discipline equals freedom.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have some discipline if to get to the freedom part. I think, because freedom is the result of the work that you do. I think, so that makes sense to me. I have these things I call Rudyisms, and these are kind of like little things that they're my truths, right?
Okay.
And like one of my truths is better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yep.
Before I've got a couple written down. You must learn the rules before you can break them. That's another one I go by.
Okay.
I mean, if you can learn what the game is, then you learn your way, through it, around it, over it, under it, whichever way you got to go to get around to get to progress, right? Question everything. This is really my number one thing. Question everything. Don't take anything for granted. And that is a statement. That is with a period on the end. Question everything. If I had one little mantra, that would be it.
So do you believe there are no stupid questions?
Absolutely. There are no stupid. The only stupid question is the one you do not ask.
Okay. I agree with that. I like that. Yeah.
I had a teacher that used to say that growing up, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a pretty stupid question. But I'm like, whatever. So I'd like let it rip because I was like, there's no stupid questions. But it's cool that I had a teacher early on that would say that to me because
you kept asking stupid questions.
It kind of got them out of my system early on. Plus, it was they kind of created a space where people were able to ask those questions. They didn't feel stupid for not knowing something. But I love that, the question everything. That's awesome.
That is good. That is good.
Life by that now.
So Rudy, I don't know if I would really call it my own mantra, but it's just something that I keep saying whenever crap does go bad, especially, and they always make fun of me, but if something happens, I just say it's all mental. Can you explain to them why I'm such a genius and why I'm correct?
You're absolutely correct because it's all in your head, right? I mean,
right.
So actually in my book, I created these, I have this concept. I got this from a book called Solve for Happy, but I really have adopted this concept that your brain is not you, right? Your brain is it's this great thing. My wife completely thinks I'm nuts. She's like, that's not, how could your brain not be you? It's you. It's like, but my theory is, your thoughts are not you because you can actually think about your thoughts, right? So how can they be you if you can think about them? Right? You with me?
I read something where it was like, are you ever laying in bed up at night, but your brain won't shut off? And then when I read that, I was like, oh my God, he's right. He's onto something. So if you want to continue elaborating how your brain is not you, and how'd you come to think that? Like, when did that hit your brain?
Well, so I mean, a heavy one. His name's Mo Gaudad, who wrote that book, and he just articulated it, I guess, right? Because so my blog on my website is called My Brain and I. So it's kind of like my brain. I take my brain out and play with it. It's kind of the way I look at it. It's like, okay, what are we going to think about today? And let's go question this. And so I've created actually like a dozen or so characters, and I can't draw, but I love typography. So I made a character out of all these different letters. So like my curiosity voice is Q, right? It's questions. So let's go ask some questions. Let's be curious today. That's one of the things that you need to be to want to change, right? So Q, and then I have my E voice, which is my emo voice or my emotional voice, and I have my V voice, which is my voice of reason. So we all have these dialogue going on in our head, right? So I kind of just put names to all these different things. I have my optimistic voice and my pessimistic voice. And I have a voice called FUD. You guys ever heard the term FUD?
No.
Nope.
It stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So we all have this voice of FUD in our head who like tells us all these stories about how bad things are going to be. And it's like why we shouldn't do that. And spins all these tales. It's kind of like our limiting belief voice, right? So when you say what you said about your idea, it's like, it's all in your head, because in your head, you can also solve all those problems with a little action to follow, of course. But
That's a good point. Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought up the letters because I saw them on your website and I was like, I definitely want him to talk about these, but I don't know how to ask him about these because I was like, is it an acronym? I was like looking at first, I'm like, it's not an acronym. And I was like, okay. So then I was like going to write it down and be like, can you explain XHP? But then I'm glad you touched on that because I was looking at that and you also have the negative voice in there, which is X, and all these other ones. And I just think that that's great to put like a face to these different voices that you hear in your head. I mean, quote unquote voices in your head, you know, don't want to make anyone sound crazy, but it's fine. It is nice to put that face to that. So you can be like, all right, this is what I'm thinking with now. And this is how I'm thinking and breaking it off into those things. So do you think that breaking it down to those things makes it easier for someone who's resistant to change to almost identify where they need to change?
I hope so. I mean, that was sort of the intention. I mean, it kind of works for me. So maybe it'll work for somebody else, you know, and I try to put logical letters to what I'm talking about, not just random letters like X and O, like X is cross that out negative, right? And O is your optimistic voice, like, oh, yes, let's do that. And so X and O, and we all know that from tic-tac-toe. And, you know, H is like your habits, right? So habits are a lot of things that kind of stop people from changing, right? You've got your good habits and you've got your bad habits. And so there's a little characteristics to all these different characters. So I kind of think if you can put those out there and have like a logical conversation with yourself, that maybe you can say, oh, I'm just being this way today. And maybe I should not be that way. Maybe I should look at it a different way. You know? So that's what goes on in my head anyway.
So, well, for someone that has like a PhD in implementing change, what's your take on excuses? And how do you solve with like whenever a client may give you one? Do you just call them out?
You got to be careful with clients, right? I mean, clients are always right.
Right. That's true. That's true.
You say, okay, I'll take that into consideration.
Right.
We used to actually throw things into projects. Like when we would go to screenings, we would deliberately make mistakes and put them in the screening. So that the client would have something really easy to grab hold of to say, well, that's wrong. And you should fix that. And that way they felt like they justified their job that day. And we were like, oh, you are so right. Why did we not see that? You know,
thank you, sir. Yes. Yeah.
It's client manipulation 101. But, so what was the question again? Sorry, I went off on that one.
I'm just curious on your take on excuses. And I mean, how often do you have to trick your own self in not making an excuse for you if there's something like you don't want to do?
Excuses I feel like I have a thing in my head to say something about that, but I don't know. Excuses are not good, right? You're just not going to get any excuses. Don't serve. There's no purpose, right? I mean, other than to stop you from what you're doing. So stop with the excuses. That's what I say.
Yeah. Short and sweet.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I feel like that's another thing that goes hand in hand with procrastination is excuses. Like I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll deal with it next week. I'll, and also justifying. I feel like those three all go together. Am I wrong? I don't know. Correct me?
No, absolutely.
Awesome.
Putting it off. There's another chapter in the book called The Day After Tomorrow Syndrome. And that's kind of procrastination and how people put things off. You know, it's like, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. And people have that. It's a problem, right? You're never going to get anywhere if you just keep putting everything off. So get to it.
Right.
Amen to that. It's usually if you're implementing change, the first step is literally the first step. Like I'm a big gym goer, and even when days that I don't want to go, I understand that if I just get to the gym, I'll feel better about myself because I'm there. And I'm sure there's times where you might have like brain fog or something, but even if you put your pen to the paper or your fingers to your phone taking notes, like you'll feel better, and then something may spark up.
Yeah, that's the discipline part that you were talking about earlier. You know,
right.
There's a lot of people who are writers. I saw people who are successful writers. I've heard this over and over again. It's like you make an appointment with your chair. You sit in your chair and you look at your keyboard and you do that. You stay there for a certain amount of time until and then you write. It's like, maybe I don't feel like writing today. Maybe I feel like going and, reading the newspaper or whatever you do, or the internet. But it's the discipline part that gets things done, right?
Well, and
it's the opposite of excuses.
That's a good point. Well, solid discipline obviously will bring you to some successes, and the successes that you've had, how did you, I guess, celebrate them in your career, and how do you define success within your own career?
I do this. Pat myself on the back every once in a while.
In a bottle of wine and Google Maps to go on a cruise.
Exactly. It's funny. You live for the successes, but those successes are, we were talking about Mr. K earlier. You work for months on something, and then you have your premiere, your screening, or whatever it is, and you invite your friends over, and you have a screening, and whatever it is, and you have that one sort of night of celebration, and then you're like, okay, that was awesome. Now, what's next? Kind of thing. That's what I like about having an ongoing project. It's not like it comes to a conclusion. Like you guys have your podcast here. It's like you end one podcast, but you keep going. It's like, okay, what did we learn today? And we'll make the next one better, and we'll keep going, and you keep building it. Who knows where it goes, but it's better than just start and stop, which is what a lot of my career has been. So.
Right.
So over your entire career, what would you say was something that you thought was gonna completely fail and ended up like surprising you, and you were like, wow, that succeeded? And that might be part of the negative voice, but it was like there was something that you had to have been like, I have little to no faith in this, but I'm going to do it anyway and see it through. And then it surprised you.
I don't know, man. Once you get that attitude, I don't know that anything actually survives that. A lot of things took a lot more work than I anticipated before they reached some level of success. And a lot of things didn't get to success. Dealing with that sort of, dealing with failure or falling down or whatever, that's part of the game. You kind of have to do that. That's going to happen a lot. So you kind of have to get comfortable with that. So, the way success comes after failing or stopping or, whatever gets in your way, a bunch of obstacles get in your way, is just to persist, right? It's just to keep going and find a solution to the next problem. Because really, and this kind of goes to what I think creativity is. Creativity, I think, is just problem solving and nothing more. It's not about painting a pretty picture or writing a beautiful song. We all are creative, and because we all solve problems, right? And that's what success is. It's just solving a number of problems until you get to a point that you call success. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So what would you say in your career would be your most learnable moment that you thought would have been, like you thought was like the biggest thing? You're like, oh man, I can't believe that happened. But like looking back, you're like, I'm glad that happened because it shaped who I became and like the road that I went down.
One of the big aha moments I've had over the past couple of years is so I've had a couple of different companies, and I've always been the kind of, like I said, the guy behind the curtains. I've never been one to be out front. I've always been, in the background doing my thing. And I have realized over the course of my career that I should be the one out there and not, being behind the scenes anymore. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that was a big aha moment, but it took years and years of trials and tribulations to get to that point. So that's pretty epic in my mind.
So Rudy, on your Q&A section, you were asked what you want to be when you grow up, and you answered smarter. I took that as in just kind of putting the ego aside and understanding that a person should be a student for their entire life. Is that what you meant by it? I mean, because everyone wants to be smarter.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wish I was smart. I wish I was smarter. You know, I always like you can never be smart enough, right? I mean, once you think you're smart, that's when that's when you're in trouble. I'd rather be humble about everything. It's like, yeah, I've learned a few things along the way, but there's always more to learn. You know, I mean, I love learning. When I say I wish I could be smarter, I wish I could learn like 5 times faster. You know, like I have this guy that I'm working with right now, and he is wicked smart. And it's like, my brain hurts after like working with him for 2 hours, but I want that guy on my team, right? I mean, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room. You know, that's one of my goals. If I can be the dumbest guy in the room, I know I'm in the right place. So everybody's smarter than me, right? They know better. And all I have to do is kind of just, you know, be there. And
yeah,
I actually got that from that very first documentary I worked on. Louis B. Mayer, the M in MGM, used to say that. I want to be the dumbest man in the room. So that's what I want to be. And sometimes that's what I am. So
that's a good idea. And I know what you mean by it. And I would say I am in this room. So it makes me feel better, I guess.
Nah, stop.
Another Q&A thing is your superhero power. You can see the bigger picture. So I'm curious what you mean by that. And I'm curious if you could tell us, or if you could use your power on us and tell us our bigger picture. That way we don't have to do anything else. We'll find out that answer right now.
What's funny is I have always had this ability to see the bigger picture. Like, so we're always in business, you're stomping out forest fires every day, right? Putting out the fire that's right in front of you. And I'm not always right, but if you can see what's 3 steps down the road, 3 chess moves ahead, where things are going, you know what I mean? That's a talent. And I don't think most people have that. They're mostly like, what's here right now? What do I got to do? You know? So, and I've actually, it's to other people. Sometimes it's like, Rudy, stop talking about that. We have to deal with this, you know? But if we would have dealt with that bigger thing, things would be better now. You know what I mean? After in hindsight, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's good to be able to step back and say, where am I headed? You know, and that's what is the future that I want, or what is the future that's, you know, what are things that the energy forces that are working for me and against me? And how can I position myself to get to that place that will be the logical place to be 3 steps down the road? So I would just encourage people to try to think that way for a change.
There's this quote, I think it's by Jesse Itzler, and he says, "Be where your feet are," and then you're saying, kind of, I guess, understand the direction you're going to, but obviously you don't mean, you know, you can't daydream all the time of where you want to be. You obviously have to be present in what you're doing and working towards those goals, right?
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, because it's funny because that's exactly the phrase people told me. It's like, Rudy, your head's in the clouds. Just be where your feet are, as you just said. You know,
right?
But it's one thing to fantasize about something, and it's another to be sort of logical about it. Like, I love all things future, for instance, right? I mean, I read things. I have people's blogs pushed to me, news feeds pushed to me. So I'm pretty adept at, since I consider myself pretty adept at where the world's headed, you know? Yeah. And so, like, I make my investments that way. I try to apply what I know towards what I'm doing right now with my project, and say, well, how can I use all that stuff? So that goes back to the learning thing, right? So if you're constantly learning and you're seeing things, by learning, you're able to see things that you couldn't otherwise see because you didn't know about them. And that goes back to the awareness thing, right? first you have to be aware, and you have to know. First, you have to know that you don't know, and then you have to try to learn what you don't know. And then when you do that, it opens up even more doors so you can see the bigger picture. You with me?
Yeah, I know I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I completely understand what you're saying. I feel like I always thought that I was more of a big picture person than like looking at the task in front of me. And because I'm always all over the place, but I feel that it's almost easier to take that step back when you are in a more creative role, surrounded by creative people. You know, you have that almost head in the clouds, like you said, mentality that people view that as, that helps you to look at the big picture instead of just being like, well, this is what we have to fix right this second. So with that, do you think that that was able to help you in, like, when you were making the decision to move to Florida, like in every decision of your life, do you think that that helped, that big picture aspect helped in any decision-making skills that you had in your life where you were like, this is, like, I know because of this?
Absolutely. Because if you can sort of see down the road, you can start making decisions based on that, you know? And it's not about just saying, oh, when you say your head's in close, oh yes, let's go do this and let's go do that. And everybody talks about being sort of scatterbrained. And I've been accused of that, certainly plenty of times. But you also have to learn how to say no, because like if you can see the big picture, you know what to say yes to, or at least you have an inclination as to what to say yes to. And you also have an inclination towards to say, no, that's probably not, that might be a waste of time, you know? So, you know what I mean? So it keeps you kind of focused if you can see the big picture. So you don't go just bounce, you can bounce off the walls as long as you're going in down the right tunnel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rudy, what was it like to hold an Emmy in your hands?
It was pretty cool. I was nervous, you know, I don't like being up on stage. So I wasn't sure if they were going to call my name, and they called my name, and so that was pretty good. But I had a couple of, it was a, you know, big thing. So I was a little bit lubricated that night. I feel like I'm sounding like I'm like an alcoholic. I actually don't drink very much, but just on occasion. But
you won an Emmy, and speaking of excuses, I think that's a pretty damn good excuse to have a couple of drinks. So you know.
So you won one Emmy, but you were nominated for 7 total, correct? Your work was nominated for 7 total.
I've been involved in projects that have won more Emmys than I personally got. You know, I mean, that very first project, that MGM documentary won an Emmy. And I was a production manager and post supervisor and assistant director. I did a lot of different roles on this. It's called In Search of Dr. Seuss. It was Dr. Seuss's life. And that project got nominated for 7. It didn't win any, but it was nominated for 7. And that was a pretty cool project. So it's been great to be involved in projects. I wasn't, you know, the position that got the Emmy or, you know, got nominated or whatever, but I've been on a number of projects that were.
Yeah, still great. I mean, still something to put on a resume. It's nothing to brush over. Yeah, because we haven't been involved in anything that won an Emmy. So
not yet, but the bigger picture tells me something else.
Not yet. That's the negative thinking. But
well, what's the award for podcasts? Maybe you guys can put yourselves up for that.
Maybe we'll just create an award and then we'll just win it every year.
Just like the golden mic.
To boost our egos.
Yeah. That sounds like it already exists.
The golden mic, yeah.
It sounds like it's a radio award, though.
There we go.
Yeah. So you have your book out right now. People can go and get it on Amazon or at rudypoe.com.
Yep, which will feed you to Amazon. So
yes.
It's interesting. So I mean, this is interesting because like in today's age, you're talking about your podcast, but I self-published my book. I don't have a big publisher behind me or anything. So it is up to me to sell the book. So it's a fantastic opportunity we all have to put our material out there. So.
And I don't have my copy of the book because my father and I are sharing the book currently. We have 2 different color Post-it notes at where we're at in the book. So he has it this week. We're sharing custody. So
cool. I've been reading your dad's book, and you're mentioned in there. I've noticed a couple times.
Yeah, once or twice, but my sister got an entire chapter. But yeah, so I made the cut. But yeah, it is. If people want to go and listen to or read the book, they can go to rudypoe.com. It's at Rudy Poe on all social media, and rudypoe.com will also take you to the embracingchange.io page, which will tell you more about the book and more about how to embrace change and implement that in your life with the online course. And I want to thank you so much, Rudy Poe, for taking the time out of your day to sit down with us for as long as you did.
No, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Anytime. So let us know if you're ever in the Chicago area, and we'll get together. We grab a drink, or it's a special occasion if you're in Chicago. So
that's right. Yeah. Thank you, Rudy. It was great talking to you.
Yeah. Nice to meet you guys.
Thanks,
you
Rudy.
as well.
Meeting you too.
Okay. Take care. Talk soon.